couldn't end my day without reading. Yesterday I missed it because yeah, it was too late. It was too late, and yeah, I had to go to sleep. But now I cannot end my day without reading, and I have to work out too. So yeah, fun. All right. Would rather. Would rather. I forgot where I left off. Conducted there. Okay, okay. He drove home to Huntington Beach, having gone to Bannockburn in the hope that seeing the place would help him decide how to proceed. He was disappointed. He still did not know what to do next. He could not figure out to whom he could sell his information for a price worth the risk he was taking. Not to the U.S. government. It was their information to begin with, and not to the Soviets, the natural adversary. For it was the Soviets who had paid him to kill Weatherby. Oh, the Yarbecks, the Hustons, and Haynes. Of course, he couldn't prove he had been working for the Soviets. Of course, he couldn't prove he had been working for the Soviets. They were clever. They were clever when they hired a freelancer like him. But he had worked for these people as often as he had taken contracts from the mob, and based on dozens of clues over the years, he had decided they were Soviets. Once in a while, he dealt with people other than the usual three contacts in LA, and invariably they spoke with what sounded like Russian accents. Furthermore, their targets were usually political to at least some degree, or as in the case of Bannockburn kills, or in the case of Bannockburn kills, military targets, and their information always proved more thorough, accurate, and sophisticated than the information he was given by the mob when he contracted for a simple gangland hit. So who would pay for such sensitive defensive information if not the US or the Soviets? Some third world dictator looking for a way to circumvent the nuclear capabilities of the most powerful countries. The Francis Project might give some pocket Hitler that edge, elevate him to a world power, and he might pay well for it. But who wanted to risk dealing with Gaddafi types, not Vince? Besides, he possessed information about the existence of the revolutionary search at Bannatyne, but he did not have detailed files on how the Francis Project's miracles had been accomplished. He had less to sell than he first thought. However, in the back of his mind, an idea had been growing since yesterday. Now, as he continued to puzzle over a potential buyer for his information, that idea flowered. The dog. Oh, so Vince is looking for the dog now. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. I fear that the dog is gonna be Einstein. I fear that with his search for the dog, it's gonna be Einstein. This is where he's gonna cross paths with Travis, and he's gonna try to take Einstein away. No, that's my prediction. At home again, he sat in his bedroom, staring out at the sea. He sat there even after nightfall, after he could no longer see the water. After he could no longer see the water, and he thought about the dog. Huston and Haynes had told him so much about the retriever that he began to realize his knowledge of the Francis project, although potentially explosive and valuable, was not 1,000 as valuable as the dog itself. The retriever could be exploited in many ways. It was a money machine with a tail. For one thing, he could probably sell it back to the government or to the Russians for a barge load of cash. If he could find a dog, he would be able to achieve financial independence. But how could he locate it? No. All over Southern California, a quiet search, almost secret yet gigantic, must be underway. The defense department would be putting tremendous manpower into the hunt, and if Vince crossed paths with those searchers, they would want to know who he was. He could not afford to draw attention to himself. Furthermore, if he conducted his own search of the near Santa Ana foothills, into which the lab escapes had almost surely fled, he might encounter the wrong one. He might miss the golden retriever and stumble upon the outsider, and that could be dangerous, deadly. Beyond the bedroom window, the cloud-armored night sky and the sea flow together in blackness, as dark as the far side of the moon. On Thursday, one day after Einstein cornered Arthur Streck in Nora Devon's kitchen, Streck was arraigned on charges of breaking and entering, assault and battery, and attempted rape. Because he had previously been convicted of rape and had served 2 years of over a 3-year sentence, his bail was high. He could not meet it, and since he could not locate a bondsman who would trust him, he seemed destined to remain in jail until his case came to trial, which was a great relief to Nora. On Friday, she went to lunch with Travis Cornell. Okay. She was startled to hear herself accept this invitation. It was true that Travis had seemed genuinely shocked to learn of the terror and harassment she had endured at Streck's hands. And it was also true that to some extent she owed her dignity and perhaps her life to his arrival at the penultimate moment. Yet years of indoctrination and violent paranoia could not be washed away in a few days, and the residue of unreasonable suspicion and wariness clung to Nora. She would have been dismayed, maybe even shattered, if Travis had suddenly tried to force himself upon her, but she would not have been surprised. Having been encouraged since early childhood to expect the worst of people, she could be surprised only by kindness and compassion. Nevertheless, she went to lunch with him. At first, she did not know why. However, she did not have to think long to find the answer. The dog. So everybody wants a dog now. That's crazy. Everybody wants Einstein. She wanted to be near the dog because he made her feel secure, and because she never before being the recipient of such unrestrained affection as Einstein lavished on her. Wow, so Einstein seemed to have this unconditional effect on the people that he encounters. Yeah, Travis first, because Travis wanted to get rid of the dog at first, but then as he got to know more about Einstein, started to love the dog, wanted to keep it because he wanted to get rid of it. The first thing he wanted to do was get rid of it. But as Einstein started, I guess, showing off, Travis got curious and kept it. But now Nora wants the dog. Nevertheless, she went to lunch with him. At first, she did not know why. However, she did not have to think long to find the answer. The dog. She wanted to be near the dog because he made her feel secure and because she never before been the recipient of such unrestrained affection as Einstein lavished on her. She had never previously been the object of any affection from anyone, and she liked it, even if it came from an animal. Besides, in her heart, Nora knew that Travis Cornell must be completely trustworthy because Einstein trusted him, and Einstein did not seem easily fooled. They ate lunch at a cafe that had a few linen draped tables outside on a brick patio under white and blue striped umbrellas, where they were permitted to clip the dog's leash to the wrought iron table leg and keep him with them. Einstein was well behaved, lying quietly most of the time. Occasionally, he raised his head to gaze at them with his soulful eyes until they relinquished scraps of food, though he was not a pest about it. Nora did not have much experience with dogs, but she thought that Einstein was unusually alert and inquisitive. He frequently shifted his position in order to watch the other diners, with whom he seemed intrigued. Nora was intrigued with everything. This was her first meal in a restaurant, and although she had read about people having lunch and dinner in thousands of restaurants in countless novels, she was still amazed and delighted by every detail. The single rose in the milk white, the single rose in the milk white vase, the matchbooks with the establishment's name embossed on them, the pattern on each, then served in a bowl of crushed ice, the slice of lemon in the ice water, the chilled salad fork was an especially amazing touch. Look at this, she said to Travis after their entries had been served and the waiter had departed. He frowned at her plate and said, "Something wrong?" "No, no, no. No, no. I mean, these vegetables, baby carrots, baby squash, where do they get them so tiny? And look how look how they've scalloped the edge of this tomato. Everything's so pretty. How do they ever find time to make everything so pretty?" She knew these things that astonished her were things he took for granted, knew that her amazement revealed her lack of experience and sophistication, making her seem like a child. She frequently blushed, sometimes stammered in embarrassment, but she could not restrain herself from commenting on these marvels. Travis smiled at her continuously, but it was not a patronizing smile, thank God. He seemed genuinely delighted by the pleasure she took in new discoveries and small luxuries. By the way, by the time they finished coffee and dessert, a kiwi tart for her, strawberries and cream for Travis, a kiwi tart for her, strawberries and cream for Travis, and a chocolate eclair that Einstein did not have to share with anyone. Nora had been engaged in the largest conversation of her life. They passed 2.5 hours without an awkward silence. mainly discussing books because, given Nora's reclusive life, a love of books was virtually the only thing they had in common. That and loneliness. He seemed genuinely interested in her opinions of novelists, and he had some fascinating insights into books, insights which had eluded her. She laughed more in one more afternoon than she had laughed in an entire year, but the experience was so exhilarating that she occasionally felt dizzy. And by the time they left the restaurant, she could not precisely remember anything they had actually said. It was all a colorful it was all a colorful blur. She was experiencing sensory overload, analogous, analogous to what a primitive tribesman might feel if suddenly deposited in the middle of New York City, and she needed time to absorb and process all that, all that had happened to her. Having walked to the cafe from her house, where Travis had left his pickup truck, they now made the return trip on foot, and Nora held the dog's leash all the way. Einstein never tried to pull away from her, never tangled the leash around her legs, but padded along at her side or in front of her, docile now and then, looking up at her with the sweet expression that made her smile. "He's a good dog," she said. "Very good," Travis agreed. "So well behaved, usually, and so cute. Don't flatter him too much." "Are you afraid he'll become vain?" "He's already vain," Travis said. "If he were any more vain, he'd be impossible to live with." The dog looked back and up at Travis and sneezed loudly as if ridiculing his master's comment. Nora laughed. "Sometimes it almost seems he can understand every word you're saying." "Sometimes," Travis agreed. When they arrived at the house, Nora wanted to invite him in. But she wasn't sure if the invitation would seem too bold, and she was afraid Travis would misinterpret it. She knew she was being a nervous old maid, knew she could and ought to trust him, but Violet suddenly loomed in her memory, full of dire warnings about men, and Nora could not bring herself to do what she knew was right. The day had been perfect, and she dreaded extending it further for fear something would happen to sully the entire memory, leaving leaving her with nothing good. So she merely thanked him for lunch and did not even dare to shake his hand. She did, however, stoop down and hug the dog. Einstein muzzled her neck and licked her throat once, making her giggle. She had never heard herself giggle before. She would have clung to him and petted him for hours if her enthusiasm for the dog had not, by comparison, made her wariness of Travis even more evident. Standing in the open door, she watched them as they got into the pickup and drove away. Travis waved at her. She waved too. Then the truck reached the corner and began to turn right, out of sight, and Nora regretted her cowardice. Wished she'd asked Travis